Faith, Fire, and Leadership. The untold story behind Mayor Aki-Sawyerr's near-death ordeal. Welcome to the Bold African Voice, BAV. I'm your host, Ahisatu Kamara Kargbo. Tonight, we dive beyond the headlines to unpack how this shocking event reveals the fragility of our systems, the strength of our faith, and the courage it takes to lead in Africa's toughest cities. Across Africa, we often say, God is in control when chaos strikes. But what happens when leadership itself becomes a test of faith and fire? In Sierra Leone's capital, Freetown, Mayor Yvonne Aki-Sawyerr narrowly escaped death after a truck smashed into her official vehicle. And just minutes later, her driver's home was completely consumed by fire. From Freetown to Nairobi, from Accra to Johannesburg, this is not just a story about one mayor, but a mirror held up to a continent still learning how to protect both its leaders and its people. Coincidence? Or a symbol of something deeper? Stay tuned. Stay. Yvonne Aki-Sawyerr, the mayor of Freetown, described Saturday, the 25th October 2025, as a tough day, and she wasn't exaggerating. In two high-drama incidents, her official vehicle was struck by a truck, and less than 30 minutes later, her driver's home was engulfed in flames. Amazingly, no one was physically injured. What happened? According to her own statement, the mayor's official car was hit by a truck in what she called a terrible accident. She noted that the side of the vehicle which sustained the worst damage was the side she normally occupies. But, thankfully, she was not in the car at the time. Sierra loaded. Barely half an hour later, her driver got the message that his house was on fire. When he reached home, the building had been completely consumed by fire. Nothing salvageable. Mayor Aki-Sawyerr expressed deep sympathy for his emotional loss and gratitude that no lives were lost and no one is in hospital. Sierra Leone Monitor. She concluded her public message with faith. It is well, God is in control. On the surface, this might read like a dark sitcom, official car crash and then home fire. But beneath the drama lie questions about risk, infrastructure, accountability, and a wider African governance context worth exploring. Critical analysis beyond the fireworks. 1. A stark reminder of infrastructural and regulatory fragility. Vehicle accidents involving trucks are all too common across Africa. That the mayor's official car, presumably well-maintained, could be so badly hit suggests weaknesses in road safety regulation, driver training, vehicle inspection systems, and urban traffic engineering. Moreover, the fire destroying a private home within minutes of the car crash raises alarming questions. Was this simply coincidence, or are there systemic factors, such as electrical faults, poor fire response mechanisms, substandard building materials, or delayed emergency services, that make such domestic catastrophes too predictable? The fact that nothing was recovered suggests a fire response system unable to salvage even basic assets. 2. Political undertones and the optics of risk. While officials say there is no suggestion at this moment that the two incidents, the crash and the fire, are linked or politically motivated, media commentary in Sierra Leone has raised the possibility of intimidation given Mayor Aki-Sawyerr's vocal stance on urban governance and anti-corruption accountability. The Sierra Leone Telegraph. In many African urban centers, senior local officials who challenge entrenched interests face both overt and covert risks. Whether coincidence or something more, the optics are poor. A leading urban reformer narrowly escapes death. Her driver loses his home, and questions swirl. This kind of incident can chill good governance, promote risk aversion, or invite suspicion of state or non-state interference. 3. From Freetown to continent-wide patterns. Let's zoom out a moment. Across Africa, road traffic accidents claim hundreds of thousands of lives every year and cost countries billions. Domestic fires in low-income neighborhoods often erupt due to illicit electricity connections, substandard wiring, wooden slum-type dwellings, and delayed fire services. When a senior official is involved in an accident, narratives usually go in one of two directions: unfortunate accident or deliberate act. Both carry different costs for governance and climate of accountability. In Ghana, for example, major freight truck collisions have triggered investigations that revealed lax enforcement of weight limits. In Kenya's informal settlements, frequent house fires have drawn attention to inadequate emergency infrastructure. The pattern is, fragility in the system translates into personal calamities. So in Sierra Leone, this incident serves as a microcosm of broader vulnerability. If the mayor's car can be smashed and a driver's house burnt to ashes in quick succession, what about the ordinary citizen's vehicle, or home, or livelihood? 4. The resilience narrative, with a bit of humor. Mayor Aki-Sawyerr's concluding line, "It is well, God is in control," may be her shield and compass. Faith, in many African public lives, is both coping mechanism and public signal. But there's also room for a little levity. Imagine her when the image of the smashed car arrived in her inbox and thinking, "Great, now I'll have to switch to bus services for a week." Or the driver arriving home, footsteps crunching on embers, looking at his charred home and muttering, "I should have parked the truck first." Jokes aside, humor can signal strength, but the underlying pain is real. The resilience shown, no injuries, scant fatalities, is fortunate, but resilience alone cannot substitute for system reform. Saying God is in control cannot be the whole answer. Human systems must be put in control too. Forward-looking, what now and what should happen. Short-term imperatives. Investigation of the crash and fire. Authorities should determine causes of both incidents. Was the truck's brake system faulty? Was there overspeeding or driver fatigue? Was the driver's home fire caused by electrical fault, arson, or other preventable condition? Transparent reporting builds trust. Support for the driver's family. Recovering from total loss of home is traumatic. The mayor's gesture of sympathy is necessary but insufficient. The city government should offer assistance, temporary housing, compensation, social welfare support. Public communication. The mayor's office should use this event to discuss urban safety, not just as a personal incident, but as a case study for citizens to learn from. Medium-term strategic changes. Road safety audit in Freetown. Given traffic growth, trucks, and mix of narrow roads, there must be systematic assessments. Signage, truck routes, loading, unloading zones, driver licensing standards, enforcement of weight height limits, regular truck maintenance checks. Urban fire prevention strategy. Many poor families are vulnerable to house fires due to electrification issues, lack of fire escapes, overcrowding. City Council should update building code enforcement, subsidize safer wiring for low-income homes, ensure fire brigade response times are known, and promote public education. Don't leave the pot on the charcoal unattended. Political risk management. If there is even a whiff of intimidation or politically motivated damage, the municipality and civil society need to ensure that the mayor's safety is secured, that institutional independence is preserved, and that local government remains accountable rather than intimidated. Long-term Africa-wide vision. Data-driven urban risk mapping. Cities across Africa should catalog near misses like this one. That crash didn't, thankfully, cause death. But what about the next one? Recognizing almost disasters strengthens systems before they kill people. Regional peer learning on mayoral safety, urban governance. The role of mayors is evolving across Africa. More power, more responsibility, more visibility. Yet the support systems are inconsistent. Networking between cities, say Freetown, Accra, Kigali, Nairobi, to share best practices on official vehicle safety, personal risk, climate resilience, fire prevention is overdue. Public infrastructure resilience as part of governance reform. The real fence against accidents and fires isn't faith, but infrastructure. Maintained roads, controlled truck traffic, modern fire brigades, safe housing. These are governance metrics as much as engineering ones. Measuring and improving them across African cities should be on the agenda for mayors and national governments alike. Why this story matters beyond Sierra Leone. It illustrates how single events, car crash plus house fire, can reverberate across multiple governance domains: urban safety, housing policy, political optics, crisis communication, and emotional welfare of civil servants. It reminds us that privileged persons are not immune. If the mayor is vulnerable, everyday citizens are doubly so. It provides an opportunity for narrative shift. In many African media, the story would stop at "mayor escapes death." But the underlying mix of structural weakness, risk, and governance demand means this can become a platform for reform rather than just a news flash. With a humorous human touch, it reminds us that public officials are human too. They feel the fear, the chaos, the why me of the freak accidents, and the relief. The humor doesn't diminish the issue, it humanizes it. Latest news and what to watch. At present, no official government statement has been released that provides detailed cause analysis of either the truck crash or the house fire. The media outlets report the mayor's statement and ask whether the pair of incidents are purely coincidental or potentially connected. The Sierra Leone Telegraph +1. Monitoring is needed on whether insurance claims or legal proceedings will follow for the official vehicle, and whether a fire investigation will determine negligence, arson, or electrical fault at the driver's home. From a political watch angle, keep an eye on whether opposition parties or civil society groups use this event to raise questions about the safety of officials, hinting at threats to governance and local democracy. On the urban safety front, one should look for announcements by the Freetown City Council or the national ministry responsible for transport about new truck route policies, road safety inspections, or housing fire prevention measures. What happened to Mayor Aki-Sawyerr is both jarring and telling, a dramatic reminder that even top officials operate in systems which are vulnerable, and that the domino effect from one incident, truck crash, can cascade into another, house fire. It is fortunate nobody was injured, but luck is a poor substitute for policy. The real question now is, will this incident become a catalyst for reform, or will it fade as just another near miss in Freetown's urban story? The region is watching, and Africa's cities should too. Governance and symbolism, when survival meets leadership optics. 1. The metaphors write themselves. It's hard not to see symbolism in Mayor Aki-Sawyerr's day of fire and metal. A truck smashes her car, a metaphor for the constant collision between reformist leadership and bureaucratic inertia. 30 minutes later, her driver's house burns, perhaps a metaphor for how quickly progress in fragile states can go up in smoke if institutions aren't fireproofed by accountability and strong governance. Freetown's mayor is one of the few African local leaders with significant international visibility, a UN climate envoy, an urban innovator, and one of the continent's few female mayors championing resilience in a capital city plagued by floods, overcrowding, and infrastructure decay. When someone of her stature experiences back-to-back misfortunes, the symbolism ripples beyond her personal life. It becomes a commentary on the precariousness of leadership in fragile democracies. 2. The gendered dimension of risk. African female leaders, especially those in high-visibility local offices, face unique challenges: political marginalization, gendered disinformation, and social scrutiny amplified by patriarchal cultures. When calamity strikes, even accidentally, it often fuels whisper campaigns or conspiracy theories. Was she targeted? Is this karma? Is this divine warning? From Liberia's former President Ellen Johnson Sirleaf to Tanzania's current leader Samia Suluhu Hassan, women in leadership must constantly balance visibility and vulnerability. Mayor Aki-Sawyerr's calm response, Emphasizing gratitude and faith rather than blame, subtly reinforces a leadership style grounded in composure, contrasting sharply with the reactionary tone often seen among male counterparts who might have blamed political enemies before investigators even arrived. 3. The power of communication in crisis. Her quick Facebook update was more than a diary entry. It was a masterclass in crisis communication. Speed. She broke the news herself, denying misinformation the chance to fill the vacuum. Tone. She framed tragedy as trial, not conspiracy. Faith. She tapped into Sierra Leone's strong Christian ethos, allowing citizens to connect emotionally. In an age where political figures rush to weaponize misfortune, Aki-Sawyerr's tone was refreshingly non-combative and politically disarming. It's the African leadership equivalent of keep calm and carry on. Regional parallels. Lessons from other African cities. 1. From Lagos to Nairobi, trucks and tragedies. Heavy-duty vehicles are a recurrent menace across African capitals. In Lagos, over 3,000 truck-related accidents were recorded between 2019 and 2023, according to Nigeria's Federal Road Safety Corps. In Nairobi, reports of brake failures on steep slopes have led to multiple fatalities, prompting calls for separate truck lanes. Sierra Leone's terrain, especially the steep hills leading into Freetown, mirrors Nairobi's challenges. The lesson? Africa's road designs rarely consider the unique risks posed by unregulated truck traffic in hilly, densely populated cities. 2. Fire as the silent destroyer. Across African cities, urban fires are a recurrent disaster. In Accra, the Continental market fire of 2023 destroyed millions in property, sparking debates over inadequate hydrant networks. In Cape Town, shack fires in informal settlements displace thousands annually due to lack of accessible water sources. Freetown has seen similar tragedies, notably the Wellington fuel tanker explosion in 2021, which killed over 150 people. The mayor's driver's loss, while personal, underscores a national crisis. Fire resilience is still a luxury. 3. Institutional learning, or lack thereof. Each African tragedy tends to elicit sympathy, but not systemic reform. After every inferno or collision, there's a press release, a committee, a report, and then silence. The problem isn't awareness, it's continuity. The follow-up mechanisms fade as soon as the public outrage cools. Freetown City Council, under Aki-Sawyerr, has championed urban resilience programs, but implementation often stalls when national-level support lags. 4. Public empathy and political irony. Interestingly, citizens across the continent often view leaders' misfortunes with mixed emotions, empathy intertwined with irony. Some say, she now knows what we ordinary people go through daily. Others comment, half-jokingly, that even God wanted her to feel our road safety issues firsthand. This humor is deeply African, tragedy softened by wit, pain diffused through laughter. It's a psychological survival mechanism that sustains millions living amid daily instability. The governance paradox: accidents, accountability, and divine insurance. There's an unspoken norm in African politics. Whenever a public official escapes death, the explanation defaults to divine mercy rather than institutional failure. You'll rarely hear, "This happened because the truck failed its safety inspection." Instead, it's "Thank God for saving us." It's comforting, but it also lets governments off the hook. Faith should inspire gratitude, not excuse dysfunction. Sierra Leoneans deserve both divine protection and functioning brake systems, both spiritual resilience and fire response reform. From a governance risk perspective, the incident reveals the tension between divine narrative and institutional narrative. The former comforts, the latter demands accountability. Bridging them is the task of modern African governance, acknowledging faith while fixing systems. Economic context: the unseen cost of everyday disasters. Road and fire incidents are not just tragedies, they're economic drains. Loss of property. The driver's home fire means loss of shelter, assets, and productivity. Insurance gap. Many Sierra Leoneans lack fire or auto insurance, forcing them into destitution after accidents. Government costs, repairing official vehicles, replacing lost assets, and compensating victims strain limited budgets. Across Africa, informal settlements and weak enforcement of safety regulations turn minor incidents into national crises. The African Development Bank estimates that road accidents alone cost African economies 3 to 5% of GDP annually. Fires, floods, and building collapses add more to the invisible fiscal hemorrhage. A city like Freetown, already grappling with debt, unemployment, and post-pandemic recovery, can ill afford such recurring micro-disasters. Each crash or fire chips away at fragile urban stability, the political temperature check. This incident also unfolds against a politically charged backdrop. Relations between the central government and Mayor Aki-Sawyerr, a key figure of the opposition All People's Congress, APC, have been strained for years. She has faced investigations, court appearances, and administrative battles that many view as politically motivated. In that climate, even a random accident can morph into political theater. Social media was abuzz with speculation. Was the truck driver negligent, or was this a setup? Was the fire an unfortunate coincidence, or something more sinister? No credible evidence supports foul play, but perception often trumps facts in Sierra Leone's polarized landscape. The mayor's composed response helped to de-escalate political tension. By refusing to dramatize the event, she denied opponents the chance to spin conspiracy narratives. Still, her ordeal highlights the precariousness of opposition figures in African politics, where even accidents are politicized, and survival becomes both physical and political. The moral undercurrent, leadership in adversity. True leadership isn't just about city planning and ribbon cutting. It's about composure under duress. Aki-Sawyerr's measured tone turned calamity into testimony, reminding Freetown that leadership involves grace under fire, literally. Her statement, "It is well," could serve as the unofficial motto for African mayors juggling collapsing drainage systems, angry citizens, and empty treasuries. But resilience shouldn't mean resignation. Faith without reform breeds complacency. God may be in control, but governance must still steer the wheel, or else we'll keep blaming Satan for bad breaks. Environmental and urban resilience. Freetown's perpetual test. 1. A city on the edge. Freetown, perched between the Atlantic Ocean and steep forested hills, is a city where beauty and danger coexist. Landslides, floods, fires, and traffic chaos are not random. They are woven into its geography and governance. The 2017 Regent mudslide that claimed over 1,000 lives remains a painful reminder of how vulnerable the capital is. Since then, Mayor Aki-Sawyerr has been one of the few local leaders actively championing climate adaptation through her Transform Freetown initiative, focusing on sanitation, tree planting, and urban planning. Ironically, the same leader pushing for environmental resilience finds herself entangled in accidents that reflect Freetown's structural fragility. Unsafe roads, unmanaged traffic, and limited fire response. Her ordeal is therefore more than personal tragedy. It exposes how thin the line between reform and reality remains in many African cities. 2. Urban risk management in African capitals. Across the continent, municipal authorities face similar struggles: overpopulation, weak land use enforcement, and outdated transport systems. For instance, Kampala, Uganda, truck and boda-boda congestion causes frequent collisions and air pollution, while fires in informal markets devastate livelihoods. Addis Ababa, Ethiopia, urban sprawl outpaces fire safety and drainage infrastructure. Dar es Salaam, Tanzania, Floods and fires in low-income areas recur every rainy season due to poor urban planning. The thread connecting these cities is clear: rapid urbanization without corresponding infrastructural evolution. In that sense, Freetown's Day of Dual Disaster is less an anomaly and more an emblem of Africa's urban growing pains. Faith versus systems, the African paradox of survival. 1. The divine narrative of resilience. Africa is arguably the most spiritually expressive continent on Earth. When disaster strikes, faith becomes both a balm and a headline. God is in control, said Mayor Aki-Sawyerr, echoing millions who invoke divine oversight in the absence of human preparedness. While comforting, this faith-first reflex often displaces the urgency for systemic fixes. A culture that attributes survival to miracles risks normalizing chaos. When road accidents and fires are daily occurrences, surviving them should not be mistaken for progress. Divine grace should inspire accountability, not replace it. Second, building institutions that complement faith. The balance Africa needs isn't between belief and unbelief. It's between belief and blueprint. Prayer without policy or faith without fire code enforcement is like blessing a truck without checking its brakes. Sierra Leone, like many of its peers, must strengthen technical governance, mandatory annual vehicle inspections, fire safety certification for all residential buildings, insurance enforcement for commercial drivers, emergency response training for local councils. Faith comforts, systems prevent. The mayor's experience should become a wake-up call to strengthen the latter without abandoning the former. The psychological toll of recurring crises. 1. Trauma in leadership. Political and personal trauma often go unspoken in African leadership. Public officials are expected to display constant strength even when faced with near-death experiences. For Aki-Sawyerr, surviving a truck crash and consoling a grieving employee on the same day is emotionally taxing. Yet, like most African leaders, she must smile, thank God, and return to work the next morning as if nothing happened. But trauma suppressed is trauma transferred. Without structured mental health support for public servants, especially in high-pressure roles, burnout and emotional fatigue become silent epidemics. Sierra Leone's public administration could learn from Rwanda, where government offices integrate counseling into employee welfare programs. Resilience must include emotional recovery, not just physical survival. Second, collective desensitization. Citizens, too, have grown numb to tragedy. The social media reactions to the mayor's ordeal were split between empathy, mockery, and indifference. When crisis becomes normalized, compassion erodes. The challenge for African societies is to revive empathy without losing humor, to care deeply while laughing smartly, not cynically. Africa-wide political context, accidents, coincidences, and conspiracies. In Africa, coincidence rarely travels alone. When high-profile figures face accidents, citizens instinctively suspect foul play. From mysterious car crashes in Zimbabwe's opposition ranks to unexplained fires in Nigerian political offices, history has conditioned Africans to distrust randomness. Mayor Aki-Sawyerr's political standing, as an opposition figure navigating a sometimes hostile central government, fuels such speculation. It may be unfair, but it's understandable. The continent's political playbook is filled with suspicious accidents that were later exposed as calculated intimidation. This doesn't mean Aki-Sawyerr's ordeal fits that mold, but it does highlight how deeply political insecurity shapes African public perception. When safety depends not just on infrastructure but on who you criticize, the line between accident and warning becomes blurred. Technology, transparency, and the way forward. 1. Data as protection. Urban safety isn't just about concrete and metal. It's about data. A smart city is a safer city. Freetown's government could deploy low-cost digital solutions to monitor truck routes, track fire service response times, and log safety incidents. Such transparency would make it harder for conspiracies to thrive and easier for accountability to stick. Countries like Kenya and South Africa are already experimenting with AI-enabled traffic analytics to predict accident hotspots. Rwanda's Kigali Fire and Rescue Brigade uses drones for rapid fire assessments in dense neighborhoods. Sierra Leone, through local innovation hubs, could adapt such models, proving that technology and governance can coexist, even in low-resource environments. Second, social media as a double-edged sword. The same platform that allowed the mayor to control her narrative also fuels misinformation. Within hours of her post, conspiracy theories and memes flooded Sierra Leonean WhatsApp groups. This duality, empowerment, and distortion is a defining feature of digital governance in Africa. Governments must therefore learn to communicate not just faster, but smarter, mixing empathy with evidence, emotion with verification. The next frontier of leadership is digital literacy as much as policy literacy. Continental reflections. Leadership under fire, literally and figuratively. The Freetown mayor's day of calamity sits within a larger pattern. African leaders constantly operating in crisis mode. Whether it's energy shortages in South Africa, security threats in Nigeria, or flooding in Mozambique, public officials across the continent are firefighting, often literally. In such environments, good governance becomes reactive rather than proactive. The challenge, therefore, isn't surviving chaos, but breaking the cycle that normalizes it. Mayor Aki-Sawyerr's composure amidst chaos should be studied not just as personal virtue, but as a case study in crisis-era leadership, how to remain publicly calm while privately wounded. It's a style African citizens increasingly crave, leaders who feel, not just lead. The moral and developmental lesson: symbolism of renewal. If you squint through the smoke and debris, there's a parable here. Destruction followed by opportunity. The mayor's damaged car can be replaced, her driver's home can be rebuilt. What must not be rebuilt, however, is complacency. In a way, this day of misfortune could symbolize a reset, a reminder that leadership, like infrastructure, needs periodic reinforcement. Just as a building needs maintenance to avoid collapse, democracy requires repair to avoid decay. The global resonance, what the world should notice. Sierra Leone's incident might appear local, but its implications are continental, even global. Cities across the developing world share the same fragility: weak infrastructure, reactive crisis management, and over-reliance on divine fortune. International development partners should see this as a teachable moment for urban risk financing. For example, the World Bank's Urban Resilience Program could collaborate with Freetown to create a pilot insurance model for municipal assets and staff. The African Union's Disaster Risk Reduction Framework could include guidelines for local government safety, not just national-level disasters. Climate finance initiatives could broaden their scope to cover urban safety, since fire and traffic accidents, though not strictly climate events, often occur under the same infrastructural vulnerabilities worsened by climate change. What happened on October 25th was more than bad luck. It was a mirror held up to Sierra Leone's governance reality, and by extension, Africa's developmental paradox. A continent brimming with faith, talent, and resilience, yet perpetually flirting with disaster because institutions remain too fragile to match its spirit. And if there's any irony left in this story, it's that one of Africa's most resilient mayors, famous for championing climate resilience, was saved by timing, not technology. 30 minutes, a divine delay between life and loss. But perhaps within that narrow window of fate lies Africa's eternal lesson. The continent survives not by chance, but by courage, even when courage wears a burnt coat and a smile that says, "It is well." The intersection of leadership, luck, and lessons. The twin incidents involving Mayor Yvonne Aki-Sawyerr, a truck smashing her official car and a fire devouring her driver's home, were not mere coincidences of misfortune. They were a cinematic snapshot of Africa's deeper story: resilience amid recurring chaos. In a continent where leadership is too often tested by unpredictable crises, from power outages to floods, coups, and collapsing buildings, how leaders respond under pressure reveals their character more than their policies ever could. Aki-Sawyerr's response was emblematic of a new generation of African leadership, measured, humane, and composed. She neither sought sympathy nor scapegoats. She acknowledged pain while affirming faith. Yet her ordeal also reminds us that grace alone cannot replace governance. Sierra Leone's capital, like much of urban Africa, needs durable systems, not just durable souls. Advice to African leaders: from reaction to prevention. 1. Move beyond faith to functionality. 2. Belief in divine intervention is not a governance strategy. African leaders must complement spiritual strength with structural preparedness. God may protect, but humans must inspect: trucks, wiring, bridges, and budgets alike. Second, institutionalize safety and accountability. Create and enforce national road safety audits, periodic infrastructure inspections, and fire response readiness checks. Every accident that could have been worse should trigger immediate review, not just Thanksgiving prayers. Third, invest in emergency services and data transparency. African cities urgently need modern emergency response systems, digital dispatching, drone reconnaissance, and trained fire brigades. Transparency through open data on accident and fire incidents can drive citizen oversight and accountability. Fourth, embrace crisis communication and public empathy. Leaders should learn from Aki-Sawyerr's swift and human-centered communication. Silence breeds speculation. Misinformation spreads faster than fire. Be visible, be honest, and be human. It's good politics and better leadership. Fifth, support those who serve you. The mayor's driver losing his home underscores the need for employee welfare systems within public service. Government workers, drivers, security officers, aides deserve financial safety nets, not condolences after catastrophe. Sixth, strengthen cross-African collaboration on urban resilience. No African city can solve these issues alone. A continental platform for sharing data, tools, and technology on road safety and disaster prevention could transform localized tragedies into continental solutions. 7. Humanize governance. In the rush for grand projects and international summits, leaders must remember the smaller human stories that define their legacy. The driver who lost his house, the citizen who lost her stall, the family displaced by fire. Governance is not about optics. It's about ordinary people's safety and dignity. Summary of the key messages. Mayor Aki-Sawyerr's ordeal symbolizes both personal survival and systemic fragility in Sierra Leone's urban environment. Faith and gratitude are vital for emotional resilience, but must coexist with robust governance mechanisms. Infrastructure and emergency systems remain Africa's weakest links, where divine protection often substitutes for institutional protection. Leadership under crisis reveals character. Aki-Sawyerr's composure offers a template for calm, transparent, empathetic leadership. Urban governance challenges in Freetown mirror those across Africa. Poor planning, weak regulation, inadequate data, and slow response to crises. The path forward requires integrating faith, technology, and accountability, a blend of spirit and system that moves Africa from survival to stability. Closing reflection. The Freetown mayor's story is more than a near-death experience. It's a sermon in civic resilience. Her words, "It is well, God is in control," captured Sierra Leone's spiritual heartbeat. Yet, behind that faith, Africa must engineer its own miracles through reform, foresight, and empathy. To African leaders, stop ruling through reactions. Start governing through prevention. The continent doesn't lack prayers. It lacks preparedness. Leadership isn't tested by how often you thank God after disasters, but by how few disasters you have to thank Him for. Because in the end, the truest miracle is not surviving chaos. It's preventing it. Thank you for watching The Bold African Voice, BAV, where truth speaks loudly and Africa listens. In the end, Mayor Aki-Sawyerr's survival was not just divine, it was a reminder. Faith keeps us strong, but systems keep us safe. Africa doesn't lack prayers, it lacks preparedness. At the Bold African Voice, we believe every story of resilience must become a lesson in reform, because true leadership is not tested by how many disasters we survive, but by how many we prevent. Don't forget to like, share, comment, and subscribe, and hit that notification bell to stay bold, stay informed, and stay inspired. Until next time, keep your faith, but demand function.